So the topic tonight is on attachment and non-attachment from a non-dual perspective. And I just want to begin talking about how precious it is to be human as sentient beings with all of our stuff. And you know, as young babies, we're so dependent on our parents and the security needs we have, and hopefully they're met, but they're not always met. And how we develop, and then there's individuation. We start to pull away and develop a personality, and then, you know, as we grow, we're just almost moment to moment dealing with so much stimulus and so much activity. And in one sense, it can be smooth and easeful, and that's, I think, where spirituality and especially non-duality can come in, and there can be so much grace that accompanies us in that by opening. But still, there's this fundamental attachment, and I was giving examples in the description of simple attachments that one can work on and hopefully relax and learn a lot about oneself. And then there's attachments that are really deep and difficult to let go of, and they keep repeating themselves, and these attachments are born out of like wounding or trauma. Other attachments are just how precious we see, like relationships, our beloved. I was using the example of the beloved, just so important in our lives. And then, like all attachments, there's there's a kind of clinging, and it gets complicated. And often there can be endings that leave us devastated. And I know that one. I had a relationship lost 2 years ago, and I was devastated for quite some time. Here I am, this, quote, kind of non-dual guy that's just struggled a lot for some time because of how deep the love and how deep the attachment, and then the letting go and the grief that followed that. It's interesting, like I mentioned in the description, Dogen, Master Dogen, is famous saying, to study the self, to know the self is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be enlightened by all things. And this studying the self and connecting all the dots, as best as one can, to knowing oneself through psychology, through emotional maturing, through lots of other modalities, is very noble work. I think it's very noble and it's important. But one can just continue revealing and unfolding, and there's something of that thought-based inquiry that doesn't quite meet the mark. It gets old, and then there's this place of, back to Dogen, forgetting the self. For me personally, forgetting the self has a lot to do with seeing thinking in its operation, having the observer, the fine observer, seeing how this thinking fuels the sense of self, quote, the small self, the egoic self, and all that accompanies thinking, the feelings and the impressions, and it's all mixed in. And this is where I want the talk to go tonight. This is where I want the discussion to go, is this refinement that happens through awareness, through aware of my thinking. My thinking plays such a role in the identity of who I know myself to be, or my self-image, and all the fear and all the accompaniment that comes with that. And in that, by observing, the fine observer, at least for me, there's this letting go. There's this, and of course my teachers and benefactors played a major role in this, but there's this letting go. There's this letting go of this thought-based, feeling-based knowing through thought, through conceptualization. And in that letting go, it's not that I overcame it. It's more like I just don't entertain it. And there's a silence or a stillness. There's a letting go. There's a real, true letting go that happens. And interestingly enough, in that letting go, there's an emergence. Again, I'm speaking out of my experience. There's this emergence of presence. It's an emergence of just being here. And for some, it's quite radical to just be here and quiet and open and heart open. And not adding, not taking away, just presence, the natural sort of presence that is our nature. It's such a conundrum because like we go looking for our true nature, mostly through thought, but when we let go of it all, and again, through, call it the work of this moment, Tony Packer, she the work of this moment, to realize I'm not my thoughts. My thoughts show up, they appear, they disappear, it's natural to just relax all that. And in that relaxation, there's this full panorama. It's like a full panorama of experience as it is, as it naturally, synchronistically unfolds. And then, it's most, for me, it's the most magical thing to be part of that, to slip into that, to call it be on a ride with it. It's like being on a ride. It's like, wow. And then within that, it's always just where attention lands. One moment it's on a flower, the next moment it's in thinking, the next moment it's in some taste in one's mouth, the next moment it's urge to use the bathroom, the next moment, and it goes on and on and on. So what I'm saying here is, in this letting go, there is a really profound rhythm and synchronicity and naturalness to one's life. And of course, as sentient beings, back to what I was saying earlier, as sentient beings, yeah, indeed we get caught. Indeed I get caught. And there's stuff that comes up and I'm struggling. But it's quick. It's much faster now to realize, oh, I'm back in the construct of David. And I'm triggered in my own unique patterns, my particular triggers. And I sometimes, and it's often enough, I get very kind of, in a way, excited, even though it's painful. It's like, oh, this has accentuated itself. This has popped its head up. And I want to explore this. This is an opportunity to explore this. So I'm not resistant like I used to be. I used to be much more resistant and wish, this didn't happen, and how can I avoid this and push this away? Well, now it's more of an opportunity to really explore it, to just explore it. So what does Dogen mean when he says, to forget the self, one is enlightened by everything? Or in Nondual terminology, it would be direct experience, living more and more and more and more of the time in direct experience. This direct, no thinking, highly intelligent, but not a lot of thinking going on. Direct experience, and trusting that, really deepening and trusting that. I'm always so blown away when I look at birds, these, hundreds of birds, and how they, in formation, they're doing all the same thing. And it's just amazing. And so it's something like that as human beings, when we get out of our own way and relax and let this intelligence show itself, just come in and follow it. So let's bring this part to a close.